Hello and welcome to yet another video, and in this video it is something a little bit different because in this video I'll be telling you why I still like to use DSLRs, not only specifically this one, but DSLRs in general to take pictures. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into the video. So in this video it is something a little bit different, especially usually for today. I usually talk about older cameras like DSLRs that I like to shoot with, older mirrorless cameras, older compact cameras, and so on and so forth. But today I just would like to just discuss about one topic that I don't usually discuss a lot about. I think the last time that I discussed about this kind of topic was, I think, 2 years ago at least, where I was recommending why I would like to actually shoot or actually enjoy to shoot with older entry-level DSLRs. But in this video I would like to actually share with you why I still like to shoot with DSLRs, because I still do shoot with DSLRs, and to be honest, it's very fun. And yes, if you remember, well, some of you probably remember, a little bit over a year ago I upgraded to the R5, and in that video I also discussed why I switched over completely, well, briefly discussed about it at least, to mirrorless system. And there is no doubt that mirrorless system has a lot of benefits to it, and I'm not going to bash on it because my main professional cameras would still be the R5, R6, and the R original. And of course with this in the backup bag as well, and some of my other Sony camera like the A7 IV that's filming me, and so on and so forth. And even though I have a few, mirrorless cameras for pretty much most of my professional work already, I still do enjoy using my DSLR for some of my professional work and a lot of my personal work as well. And I think you can actually see in some of my photo shoot videos that I did bring out the 1DX as well for the photo shoots, and I really enjoy using it. And that would actually bring me to the first part where, just because these are older DSLRs, older cameras, does not mean they're less of a camera. I still enjoy using them from day one that I got it, and it doesn't really change my feelings towards them even today. Yes, there are other gear that would benefit me more, like my R5, where I can actually show you guys part of the screen at least, like about the settings that I'm using and how I'm framing, things like that. And also it allows me to actually capture certain images that I wouldn't be able to capture with this camera in time, especially when I'm doing, photo shoot videos and trying to focus in low light, things like that. And it would just be, taking so much more time with this camera trying to show you guys, whereas just with the R5, R6, and even the R, it just takes no time. So yeah, these cameras are still good. And a lot of these cameras will have, by these cameras I meant DSLRs, a lot of DSLRs will have their own color profiles as well that, back then when the manufacturer, whether it's Canon, Nikon, what have you, released those DSLRs, there's this certain look to them that, came out at that particular time. Whereas, you know, shooting with more modern mirrorless cameras, looking back at those colors, it also feels somewhat nostalgic as well. And if you watch a lot of my DSLR videos, especially the older DSLRs, I usually use the term nostalgic look or digital nostalgic look or something like that. And it is true. And even though this is not really as old as, let's say, the 30D, which I still like to use, or my 5D Classic right here that I use, oops, every once in a while, because I also like to use the 5D Mark II, 5D Mark III, and so on. I cannot bring all of them out in the same time. These cameras have their own really nice look to it. The 1DX, even though I talk about many other cameras, whether older or newer, I always refer to the 1DX for having my favorite skin tones and color signs out of any camera that I've ever used, and it's so old. And of course, the tech is even older, and the files are nowhere as robust as even the A7C that I have, the A7 IV, the R5, things like that. So yeah, and of course the dynamic range is not really up to date, but it is still good enough for what I want to do with it. And of course, DSLRs, they're still really reliable for what they do, and especially if you get even the 40D, 30D, you know, they're really old, yes, but they're also very affordable. You usually find them under 100 euros, and they're still really reliable because they were built, you know, to last. And talking about build quality and also the overall size, I feel like with DSLRs, when I do go out for street photo shoots or street photography, it's more socially accepted. When I bring this camera out, people know that I'm a photographer or just a tourist with a big camera, but at least it feels more socially accepted in a way, at least to places where I've been to, because, you know, people usually don't mind me taking pictures with DSLRs, despite the fact that they are much louder than mirrorless cameras, except if you're using Sony cameras, which when in mechanical mode, the shutter is still really loud. But anyway, sorry, I just bumped you guys. Anyway, back to the topic about using this. Yeah, when I shoot photography, like on the street, or just asking people random people in the street if they want their portrait taken or if I can take portraits of them, then they're more likely to say yes than if I were to use, let's say, other cameras, even my mirrorless cameras. So with this, it's more socially accepted that, you know, I am a photographer, and yeah, I therefore have access to certain places. That being said, of course, with places where they're very sensitive about cameras, then DSLR is the first to be banned compared to mirrorless cameras. With the size, the build quality, the look of it, you know, where it's more accepted as like a mini compact camera. So for example, if I were to go out with the R6 and a pancake, or the A7 IV and a pancake, or even this 20mm f1.8 lens, then, you know, it's more accepted as like a compact camera that I can actually just bring in, things like that. So yeah, there's that. And of course, after talking about how socially I'm more accepted with this camera, you know, I'm seen as more of a photographer with this camera compared to other cameras that I have. Well, not just with this camera, but also pretty much all of my other DSLRs, pretty much. This brings me to the next point when I'm actually shooting, whether it's just, you know, landscape photography, cityscape photography, or just street photography, or just, you know, shooting random portraits on the streets with DSLRs. It also allows me to feel more connected with the actual environment, if that makes sense, because with mirrorless cameras, I tend to actually just use the viewfinder or use the actual LCD screen, which has its own benefit, of course, of seeing what I'm gonna get at the end of the day. But in the same time, when I'm just framing my images like this, like with the optical viewfinder, of course, it's not as advanced as the electronic viewfinder, of course not, but it allows me to still be connected with the scene, with the environment. I still see the natural light, and there's no split-second delay when taking pictures or anything. It's just very instant, it's very tactile. I don't know how to really say it and describe it, but it's just, you don't see exactly what you're going to get. Of course, in terms of composition, you'll still see, and there's the exposure bar underneath that you can kind of guesstimate if you're overexposed or underexposed, things like that. But overall, I just feel like I'm still connected to the scene without being cut off or anything in between. Of course, there's a big chunk of camera in between, and this is just reflection of the mirrors inside, the mirror box and the pentaprism, things like that. So yeah, but still, I hope you're actually understanding what I'm saying, but yeah, there's that. And also with a bigger DSLR, with a bigger build quality, of course, I cannot really say this about all mirrorless cameras, but the buttons also feel more nice in the same time. Like, it's not only the 1DX, but even going to the 5D Classic, the 6D, the 5D Mark II, 5D Mark III, even the 550D actually, it feels nicer than my A7 IV. But that's of course very subjective, but it's actually a lot more comfortable, especially shooting in harsher environments like in the cold where I would need gloves, and control-wise, I can just control them better than with my A7 IV or my R5 to a certain extent, because the R5 is actually built quite big, and compare that to the 550D, it is a bit bigger, and Canon in general is a bit more generous with their button size on their full-frame cameras, especially the mirrorless ones. So yeah, but with Sony it is still cramped in and everything, and of course the same is pretty much with the Olympus and also my Fuji system as well. So yeah, that is pretty much still why I like to use this as well, because I can just actually, you know, control it and operate it without looking at the camera, because everything just feels so nice. And even with gloves on, I know that there's that confirmation or that I'm actually pressing it. So that's actually quite nice as well. Whew. And then on to the next point, which is somewhat subjective, and you know, this is pretty much only referring probably to me and very, very few of you guys, is the feeling of, you know, feeling the process more. Because with mirrorless cameras, especially the A7 IV, the R5, the reason I'm giving a lot of A7 IV and R5 is because I use them a lot of time. A7 IV right here, and R5 is just right there next to my computer. R6 is there, and so is the R. But yeah, they feel a lot like just operating with computer. Yes, the Canon is very easy to use and everything is at your fingertips and it's super nice and convenient, but there's something about using these cameras where there's character to it. It's like, it feels a little bit like talking about older film cameras where there is a bit of character to them when using them, and you do feel the process a bit more, you know, like the shutter sound, the actual mechanism that when you take pictures. Of course, you still feel a little bit with the mirrorless cameras when you do go for the mechanical shutter, which is what I primarily use it for, which is to take mechanical pictures. I don't use electronic shutter simply because, well, I think it's not really genuine just using electronic shutter. I do use it, but in the past 5 years, I think it's between 0.25 or 0.3% of the time from the past 5 years that I really use electronic shutter. But yeah, I just feel more genuine with the mechanical shutter. Of course, there are situations where electronic shutter will be a must to use. I'm not going to argue with that, but you know, in most cases I still love to use the mechanical shutter, and with this I still feel more of the process. I feel more connected with the actual environment, and after taking pictures, I don't know, I feel like because it's not as convenient as mirrorless, I feel more of the process of each individual images than with the mirrorless, if that makes sense. Whew. So yeah, there is that. These are pretty much my short reasonings. If you have any more or any suggestions, also feel free to comment down in the comment section below. But yeah, otherwise, I hope this video would help you somewhat and you can gain something from this video somewhat. If you need a free photography guidebook, it's absolutely for free on my website. Just click the link down in the description section below. I will not bombard you with any newsletter nonsense. Yeah, otherwise, I thank you all very much for watching. Stay safe, have fun shooting. Till next time, bye for now.